food of you. And yes, Lord, that you cover not only our studying of the word, but that our thoughts, our words, and our actions, Lord, that they will be conducive to what you have laid out for us to do on our time here. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Um, Today is June 1st. The title of the lesson is The Offerings of Cain and Abel from Genesis 4, 1 through 6. We do have papers and things like that. I was small group, so I guess it's really intimate today. The lesson context comes from the book of Genesis, but it does not explicitly claim who the author of this book is, was to be written by Moses. However, many modern scholars have proposed that the text of the book of Genesis is a composite work of several different sources, written 100 years after Moses, who had lived. I find it very interesting. I mean, most people who say they're going to read the Bible in a year, they always start with Genesis and they get a couple of pages in. So this is a very familiar story, one that I always kind of have questions and things about. But we can kind of jump right in and figure out what's going on. And I tend to like conversation, so I don't want to dominate the conversation. So we'll just go through and stop me when you want, or when you have questions or anything like that, and we'll address it the best we can. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare a child, Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his son Abel. These are the first two, verse 1 and 2 of Genesis 4. And we do know that this was an intimate relationship between Adam and Eve, and this is all of the things that's kind of going on after they were kind of excommunicated from the garden, and these things are kind of taking place. Genesis record indicates that that Cain was the first child of the first couple. God commanded the first couple to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. That's kind of where I got caught up a little bit at the first part. It said replenish. I always thought that Adam and Eve were the first two. Cain and Abel were 3 and 4. But it does say replenish the earth. And replenish, we know that the prefix re means to do again, indicating that there may have been people on the earth prior to this. There's no evidence of this, so we can't just add or subtract things from what the word is saying. However, as we get further into this, you hear Cain actually say that if you send me out, that the people that's out there will destroy him or kill him or things like that. Who are those people? Is it Cain's brothers? Is it Cain's sisters? But like I said, we can get to that when we get there. In verse 2, and she began his brother Abel, who was the younger brother. Eve then gave birth to Abel. Though we do not know how much time had passed between the births, we do know that Cain is older than Abel. No words of Eve are recorded following Abel's birth. The name Abel comes from the Hebrew meaning breath or vapor. And the intentionality of their names should not be lost. The intentionality, as a Hebrew bearer of recognizing the lesson of each of the sons' names. Cain reminds us that life sometimes from the Lord, while Abel's names reminds the hearer that life is brief. Just something a little personal. That I had 2 students to pass this week. One was 7 and one was 8. They were cousins, and they were swimming in the lake out at Tobosaki. And the younger brother did drown. And they found him Friday of last week. They pulled the other two out, and the 8-year-old passed away Saturday. So this is a little deep um, when you think about the meaning of Abel's name, that life is brief, and you think of a 7-year-old losing their life. Um, that's brief. But I just had a birthday in May. I'm 45, and when I say that to other people, they say, "Oh, you're a young man." And so, if I was to expire, then to my children and to my wife, then my life would also be brief. So, whereas age really does just kind of indicate how old you are, but your relationships kind of show how your life is brief. And not only that, the relationship that we have with Christ, we have to really be sure that we spend our days giving Him thanks, because we don't know how much time we actually have, and that our life, in fact, is brief. Any questions, any comments on those first two verses? Well, they don't really give us any record about how old or young he could have been. I like to think that if they were actually out there working and praising the Lord, they were giving sacrifices. So they weren't babies, they weren't young. But I really could see them being maybe 17, 18, and maybe Abel being maybe 15, 16 years old. Just because of the work that they were doing, I really don't see them being, a 10-year-old actually working in the, tilling or being a shepherd or anything like that. But if they were out there by themselves, then they would have to have some measure of trust from, I guess, Adam, to be out there doing those things. So I just don't think they were young, but I don't think that they were up in age either. Maybe teenagers, early 20s. If you don't mind, will somebody read for us 3, 4, and 5, verses 3, 4, and 5? So we do see here that they were actually working. Cain tilled Abel became a shepherd, and Cain tilled the soil. Do you really think that there were some correlations to what their jobs actually were? We do know that prior to this, that the Lord had told them that they would have to, man would have to work in the earth, and that it would be difficult for them to do. So that's a hard job. It would not be something easy for Cain to do. Also, if Cain was the firstborn, they were still learning how to till the ground, raise crops, things like that. So Cain was one who learned how to, be a farmer, I guess. And Abel became a shepherd. And when we think about Abel being a shepherd, we also think about how Christ is our shepherd, how he guides, how he protects, and things like that. Just some correlations between Abel being a shepherd and Cain actually tilling the soil. It said in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord, and Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock. And I really thought that was interesting, about how Abel brought the first of his offerings. It was the first part of it, the best part of it, the fat part of it, the part that was most usable. But it does not say what Cain brought. It just says Cain brought of the fruit of the ground. And that we don't know if it was the first fruits We don't know if it was good fruit. We don't know if Cain ate some of the fruit. All we know is that whatever Cain brought, that the Lord was not satisfied with it. And what I drew from that is that we need to really draw upon the context of what Cain was doing, because sometimes our offerings may upset the Lord. And all of our offerings may not be satisfying to the Lord. Our offerings of time, our offerings of prayer, our offerings of our tithes and offerings, whatever we call ourselves offering to the Lord, He may not always be pleased with them. And then it says that Cain got really angry, and that's an emotion that we can all that all resonates with us. But what happens is that if we let anger take over us, just because God is displeased with something that we have done, we open the door for sin to come in. Any questions? Any comments? Anything? Just picked it up. The right, the unright. It wasn't. And I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a plum tree that I have been trying to get plums off of for at least 5 years. Um, I've done everything I could possibly think to do. I've trimmed it. I've cut it. I've talked to Deacon Herb about what I can do to kind of graft it or things like that. And I actually got the plums are growing. So now the plums were growing, but the squirrels came and took everything. So then for a few years I was fighting squirrels. I was trapping squirrels and putting traps out and all kinds of stuff, just keeping squirrels out. And now my neighbors next door have chickens, so the chickens just kind of make a whole lot of noise. So they keep the squirrels out. So the plums grow. Now I can't get out to get the plums, so the plums fall on the ground. And when they fall on the ground, they rot. Some of them on the tree have worms, so you can't use them. So you're absolutely correct in saying that maybe what he gave God was not the best. Maybe he was running late. Maybe he slept too late and he just went out there and grabbed something. But don't we do that sometimes? Don't we just kind of just give God what we can sometimes and not what we should, or do our best when we should? And he, God being God, he told him that he wasn't happy with it. But Cain took it upon himself to become angry, and that led to some decisions that ultimately led him to being cursed. And while I don't want that for any of us, sometimes we put ourselves in positions where we set ourselves up to be chastised by God. But is that truly a bad thing for God to tell us that what we are doing is not our best? That's right. That's right. Yes. And it's interesting that you say that, because I want to think that Adam and Eve did give Cain and Abel what they needed to praise God. But I don't think that the personal relationship that Adam and Eve had with God was not the same relationship um, that Cain and Abel had. And to be frank, as parents, as grandparents, as aunts and uncles and things like that, we have to really be careful what we teach and pass on to our children, making sure that they reverence God in the correct way. I'm sure that Adam told them that, hey, God is going to want the best, that you need to make this offering, that you need to give God your best. I mean, Cain was like, well, who is this? Because I'm sure God wasn't actively walking with them as he was in the garden, but he was there. He knew them. And like you said, he knew Cain's heart from the beginning. And when God knows our heart, he knows our intentions. And our intentions have to be aligned with whatever we give. You can give a penny or you can give $1,000. But to God, the penny is worth more if you give it in the right spirit. And so what that means is that Cain just did not give it in the right spirit, while Abel did. While it was the first, it was also in the right spirit. His heart was in the right place. Yes, ma'am. That's right. That's right. And we have to let them make their own choices. Um, Trent is at the age now where I am a parent, but I'm more consultant now, coach. And so he'll say, well, I'm thinking about doing this. And I said, well, I don't think that's a good idea. Have you prayed about that? Well, I prayed about it, but is your heart in the right place? You know, and not only do we just want to honor God, we need to honor those people that show the shoulders that we stand on. And we don't want to make those people um, feel like their sacrifices were in vain, you know, if that makes sense. Um, because those people have prayed for you. Those people have invested in you. Those people have um, ensured that they have given you what you need to be successful. And I'm sure Adam and Eve did the same thing. But like you said, they have free will. But we have to make sure that what we tell our children is accurate. And not only what we tell them, but what we show them. So that means also, too, that sometimes Adam and Eve's heart wasn't in the right place because Cain got it from somewhere. So, all right. The next verses, 5 and 6. Anybody want those? They've been on better terms. And to be, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because if that had happened, we wouldn't have this story to show us that that could have been an option. I'm sure that could have been an option. That's not the route that Cain chose to take. So now we have this story that shows us uh, how one thing can lead to another, and we find ourselves in a position where we've gotten to a place where we don't even recognize our own selves, and that we're trying to get back from, but we've put ourselves in this place. Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Um, and the Lord said unto Cain, this is 6, 7, and 8. And the Lord said to Cain, why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. And if thou doest not well, sin lies at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. Isn't God a great teacher? He told him. He asked and he told him. He said, "Why are you?" We asked him. He said, "Why are you angry?" And honestly, Cain knew why he was angry, but he didn't reveal that to God, which goes back to what you were saying, Miss Althea, is that his heart was not in the right place, and he couldn't tell God, "This is what I brought because of this," because he was angry. And we have to be very careful with that anger, because that can lead down some treacherous slopes. And it's not hard to get angry. You can get angry about anything. Somebody cut you off, you're angry. Somebody say something to you, you're angry. You stump your toe before you get out, or before you leave to work in the morning. Now you're angry at everybody at work. But for what? You know? And sometimes we just have to exercise a little restraint and say, this is where I am. This is the day the Lord has made. I'm going to take it and do the very best that I can with it. And it's funny that we these lessons come up, and you really have to, chastise yourself before you can come and present these things. But on Friday, I was just having a hard time getting out of the house. I got up late. Coffee was gone. The trash can was full. So now I'm doing all these things before, trying to get to work. I wanted to be at work at 7. I told my staff to be there at 7:30. I'm still at the house at 7. So I went out the door, closed the door, walked to the car, and realized I didn't have my keys. So, these are things now I feel myself getting angry. But why am I wroth? Why am I angry? What do you have to be angry for? You in good health? You are late, but what is that stopping you from? And what does that keep you from? Does it keep you from being your very best? Because these things are presenting themselves. So I'm standing at the door, I'm knocking, trying to get in and get back in my key. My son on the other side knocking. Who is it? Who is it? So you find yourself getting angry for the simplest thing, the smallest things. And those things can lead to so many other things if you let it enter into your heart. So you have to be very careful when that, because the devil is good. He knows. He knows if you're a timely person, if you like to be on time, then he's gonna make you late. And then that's his entrance. And so we have to be careful, because he knows us, and he knows what our vices are, and what we'll say yes to and what we'll say no to. That's right. Yeah. That's right. That's right. And you have to have enough you have to have enough wherewithal to reflect, to want to reflect on your own actions. Yes, sir. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. No. That's right. It's already up. You just have to push the button. That's right. That's right. And even and I love that you said that, because not only am I punctual person. I like to be punctual. I also like to be prepared. So I put my keys where I need to do. I make a to-do list. I do those things so I'm prepared. But those things will still come up. Things will still come up. You can go out to your car and the tire be flat. You can't prepare for that. But you have to have the wherewithal to say, you know what, I just have to take it as it is. You know, because then I had to tell myself, you know what, I 180 days, or maybe let's just say 70 days, I've been on time. So you can be late one time and everything will be all right. You killing yourself for one time. You letting all of this anger into your heart because you only messed up one time. And that goes back to what you were saying about the fruit could have been spoiled on the ground. He knew that. It wasn't the first time he went and picked the fruit up. So, he got caught up maybe. Maybe he was out there talking to somebody. I don't know what he was doing, but he knew that wasn't his best. And he still presented to God. And we do the same thing. I'm just going to go out here and do my best. That's what we tell us. I'm just going to give God this, and that's just going to be what it's going to be. It's short, and you know it. And the knowing is what gets you. You know it's not your best. And that's what we have to, you have to be very careful. You have to give your best at all times. And the consistency part is bad. It's hard to be consistent day in and day out, especially when you see people getting ahead when they're not doing their best or they just doing something. And you're like, how are they making all these moves and they not even trying, they're not doing the best. I know they're not doing this. So. He wants that. He wants exactly what you said. This is my opportunity to say, hey, you know what, God? Maybe you keeping me from something. Maybe I'm running late because it's an accident waiting for me down the road. You see, it's things that we don't see. He knows. So maybe he just needed me to be 5 minutes late, so I'm not 3 minutes early to the wreck that's waiting for me on 16. He's human. That's right. And I did have 5, 6 missed calls, but it was okay. It was fine. But we just have to we have to not beat up on ourselves for the smallest things. And that's true. That's right. And it messes up so many other relationships or encounters that we have throughout the day. You know, somebody try to tell you good morning. I'm running late. You know, you just say good morning. You see what I mean? It opens up so many avenues, and now that person is having a bad day. How Mr. Ray not going? This is the first day I'm on time, and Mr. Ray not even going to say good morning. So now you're not just messing up stuff for myself. I'm messing up somebody else's encounter as well. So let's move on because it does get interesting. We're at 9. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel, thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? 10. And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth out to me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which have opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. That was really 9, 10, and 11 were really sad to me. Because as a father, a lot of times just as a parent, let's just take that out of there. As a parent, sometimes most of the time when we ask a child something, we already know the answer. And so it's just interesting to me that the Lord told Cain, he said, where is Abel thy brother? He just asked him a direct question. And he gave him, this is his second opportunity to kind of correct things. And Abel says, I don't know. He told me, I know not. When clearly he did know, he knew. And we have to go back to what Miss Althea just said, that self-reflection. How many times has God asked us a simple question, and not only have we not answered the question, we just told an outright lie. And so in the end, who are we lying to? You lying to yourself, or you lying to God? Because both of them knew. So it was just really sad. But it does show the omnipotence of God, because Abel was already with God. If he had lost his life, then he was already with God. And he knew where Abel was. He knew exactly where Abel was. But he gave Cain the opportunity to kind of take ownership of his actions, and he dropped the ball again. And then he even tries to give an excuse, and how awful is that? He asked the Lord a question. He didn't even answer. It just shows how meager his response was. And even when we ask children or kids come to my office, and I say, well, why were you in a fight? He hit me first. Not an answer, but just a cop-out kind of. Am I my brother's keeper? Like, who are you to ask me where my brother is? You should know, you God. It's just the arrogance of it, and it really just does not put humanity in a good light at this point. And he said, the voice of our brother's blood cried unto me from the ground, indicating that something awful had happened. And it's interesting to see that in the first 10 pages of the Bible, somebody's already been murdered. And if we think about like a lot of movies and things, or action movies that come on, they always come right on with something awful happening, or some kind of incident happening, or problem happens right at the very beginning. And when we think about sin in itself, we often think that murder, or killing somebody, or taking somebody's life is just an awful sin. To be able to do something or pull something off like that. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And it just shows you that, how, I don't want to use this word like, but how ugly the world can be. How it has just kind of numbed us to murder and killing and the loss of life, and just how easy it can happen, and we don't really take offense to it until it hits home. I lost when Mike was murdered. You hear a lot of, you hear people being shot, and, oh, that's sad, or people being shot at the club, oh, that's sad. But when my children lost their uncle, and it was something that was very close to home, it raises a lot of questions about safety, questions about did we do the right thing, questions about have we given our kids what they need to be safe, and for Cain to do something like this, and this be what God presents to us first, not saying that killing is okay, because it's absolutely not, but the killing only happened after he got angry, after he told God, I'm not going to be responsible for what I did, as far as giving you that fruit that was not the best offering. And now it has led to something as murder. No, he wasn't sorry. And so now you're not just talking about anger, you may even be talking about jealousy as well. You know, because we don't know what the conversation between, it says him and Cain had a conversation, Abel and Cain had a conversation. We don't know what that conversation could have been. And as a little brother, I don't have an older brother. Howard is my older brother, it's my cousin. However, I know that I can sometimes get on Howard's nerves as a younger brother. You know, just as things, because I know what buttons to push. You know, he's always calm, he's always cool, but when we get together and we have our private conversations and we say, hey man, you were wrong for that. Because a brother can tell you things that you don't often want to tell yourself. And Abel probably told him, man, you know that was wrong. You know that fruit that you gave came off the ground, and you need to stop doing that. He probably told him that. You know, and he didn't receive it well. Sometimes people don't receive honest feedback well. And he took it upon himself to try to fix the situation, but not fix it. If you're not here, you can't point out my flaws. And no matter what I give, it's got to be better than what you give, because you can't give anything because you're not here. And so we look for answers that are not really right, or solutions to problems that only get us deeper into a lost relationship with Christ, if that makes sense. No. Plant the seed and move on. Plant the seed and move on. And that has really made my relationship with my students a lot better, is that I'm not responsible for what they bring to school. They bring a lot of stuff to school, but I'm not responsible for those things. What I'm responsible is for the person that shows up at the school. I'm responsible for how I react to what they present to me. They kicking and screaming or cussing or anything like that, then the less excited I become about that situation, the better I can handle it. And I plant a seed that I don't have to act like this all the time. And so maybe next time they have a temper tantrum, it doesn't last as long. And then maybe by the end of the year, they're not having temper tantrums at all. But you have to plant the seed and move on. And oftentimes that takes a lot of stress off of you, because you can't change anybody. You can't. You just have to accept people and do your best to see people for who they are, and hope that God changes that person, and put it on their heart that I can do better. My offering, my daily offering can be better. My offering of time, can it be better? Yes. My offering of how I treat people, can it be better? Yes. Keisha always prays for me. She said, hey, help him to be better and nice to everybody he comes in contact with today. And I hate it, because sometimes I want to be the bad guy. But in my mind, I hear it, like through my daily walk with people and my interactions with people, it's always that gentle nudge, hey, that's not the person that you need to be today. And so while I choose to want to be that way, I don't oftentimes behave that way. Yes, ma'am. All right. And I think we learn from Cain's actions. That's what we're doing now. We studying Cain's actions and saying, hey, if I'm raw, then there are things that I can do that can keep me in the right relationship with God. If I'm jealous, there are things that I can do that will keep me in the right relationship with God. Even if I commit an act so heinous as murder, there are things that I can do to put myself back in the right relationship with God. 11 says, "And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto ye the strength. A fugitive, a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth." 13 says, "And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear." And I'm going to stop there because the punishment for murder is murder, correct? Is death, correct? And God, even in his anger, God spared his life. And not only did he spare his life, he spared anybody else from doing anything to him to end his life. And I think that is a great punishment because sometimes death is an easy way out. You know, you don't have to deal with the pain of knowing that you committed a sin or took your brother's life or did not give the Lord your very best. He has to live with that knowledge for the remainder of his life, knowing that God could have done something to me, but he didn't. He spared me. And that's God's grace and his mercy showing up very early. Absolutely. He did not do it. He's still talking about himself. He's still concerned about himself. He said, "This punishment is more than I can bear. I can bear." No, never said I'm sorry. He committed murder. Never said he was sorry. The offering, he never said he was sorry. It's a lot that we can unpack and learn from this situation. It's just not going to work out for you until you say you sorry or take ownership of what you have done. But he does, what God being his infinite mind doesn't just lay it out there for him. But you have to understand that all he had to do was say he was sorry. And to be honest with you, with 4 people on the earth, God could have, Abel probably would have came right on back. Maybe. But we don't know that. But we do know that he had an opportunity to come back to the Lord and he did not take it. 14, "Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I hide. And I shall be a fugitive, a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore whoever saith claim, vengeance shall be taken upon him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should not kill him." I think that was a hint to us that we need to forgive others for what they have done, because their actions is not a reflection on us or what we have done. Our job is to plant the seed. We can't control the actions of others, but we can control ourselves and exercise restraint on how we deal with people. Hate the sin and not the person. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right. It's easy to see other people's actions, very difficult to see yourself. I heard a person say it's very hard to see the picture when you're inside the frame. But if you have to think about it, if you're looking at the picture, then you can see everything. Oh, that's wrong. Light not right. You know, they should have combed their hair a little better. But if you in the frame, it's harder for you to see your flaws. But that goes back to that self-reflection piece and that meditation and spending time with God on your own, and reflecting on the things that you have done, the things that you have said, and even the things that you have thought. And that gets you. That gets me sometimes, that He even knows our thoughts, and our thoughts count more than our actual actions. Because first you have to think it before you even do it. And that's what we were talking about earlier about God knew Cain's heart. He already knew Cain wasn't going to bring a good offering. But He allowed him to bring it to see what he would do. So He allows us to walk our walk. And hopefully we can correct it before time is too late, or we have to be put out, per se, of the garden. And so we'll wrap up with our conclusion. Say, from time to time, as churches, we engage in what we have come to call worship wars. Usually the issue that creates the conflict is the style of music, people's dress, the character, things like that. Cain, however, was engaged in another kind of worship war. It had nothing to do with music or dress or traditions. Cain's worship war went much deeper. Faith, which God has always required from those who would please Him, was absent from Cain's offering. Instead of seeing Abel's righteous act as something to lead from and imitate, Cain responded in anger. John says that Cain's action was evil, and evil will always seek to persecute and silence righteousness. Prophets such as Isaiah challenged God's people in his day to recognize that despite all of the observances of worship in which they participated, incense, Sabbaths, assemblies, feasts, and prayers, it was all worthless. Why were they worthless? This people drew near me, and with their mouth and with their lips do they honor me, but have removed their heart from me. Jesus quoted these words to the religious leaders in his day, whose worship, like that of the people of Isaiah's day, was filled with religious actions, but their hearts were far away. In many churches today, an absence of resources aid in worship through modern technology, it is sobering to consider that if conditions of our heart is deficit, our worship may be just as unacceptable as Cain's was. You can come every Sunday, but if your heart not in the right place, it's just as unacceptable as Cain. And that is our lesson today. And like I said, these are difficult to read and go through because you have to actually have that reflection and that meditation with yourself and ask your own self those hard questions. Where am I in my walk with Jesus? And you have to ask that every day. If I dare say, every minute to minute and hour to hour. Mr. Willie, you want to read us in prayer as we close out?